9, a minute past 3. I dropped off to sleep. I've lost precious minutes. I don't know how many, but they are minutes that I can never have back. I should be able by now to fight off sleep. I've done it often enough on lookout in the trenches. But then I had cold or fear, or both, as my wakeful companions. I longed for that moment of surrender to sleep, just to drift away into the warmth of nothingness. Resist it, Tomo, resist it. After this night is over, then you can drift away. Then you can sleep forever, for nothing will ever matter again. Sing Oranges and Lemons. Go on, sing it. Sing it, like Big Joe does, over and over again. That'll keep you awake. They tell us we're going up to the front, and we're all relieved. We are leaving Eatables and Sergeant Hanley forever, we hope. We're leaving France and marching into Belgium, singing as we go. Captain Wilkes likes us to sing. Good for morale, he says. And he's right too. The more we sing, the more cheery we become, and that's in spite of all that we see. The shell-shattered villages we march through, the field hospitals that we pass, the empty coffins waiting. The captain was a choir master and a teacher back home in Salisbury, so he knows what he's doing. We hope he'll know what he's doing when he gets to the trenches as well. It's difficult to believe that he and Sergeant Horrible Hanley are in the same army on the same side. We have never come across anyone who treats us with such kindness and consideration. As Charlie says, he treats us right. So we treat him right too, except that is for Nipper Martin, who ribs him whenever he can. Nipper can be like that, a little bit mean sometimes. He's the only one who still keeps on about my squeaky voice. Are you downhearted? No. Then let your voices ring out and all together sing. Are we downhearted? No. We sing and march with a new spirit in our step. And when that finishes and there's just the sound of marching feet, Charlie starts up with Oranges and Lemons, which makes us all laugh, the captain too. I join in, and soon they're all singing along. No one knows why we sing it, of course. It's a secret between Charlie and me, and I know as we sing that he's thinking of Big Joe and home, just as I am. The captain has told us that we're going to a sector that's been quiet for a while now, so things shouldn't be too bad. We're happy about that, of course, but we honestly don't care that much. Nothing could be worse than what we've just left. We pass a battery of heavy guns, the gunners sitting round a table playing cards. The guns are silent now, and their barrels are gaping at the enemy. I look where they point, but I can see no enemy. All I have seen of the enemy so far is a huddle of ragged prisoners sheltering from the rain under a tree as we marched past, their grey uniforms caked in mud. Some of them were smiling. One of them even waved and called out, "Hello, Tommy!" "He's talking to you," said Charlie, laughing, so I waved back. They seem much like us, but only dirtier. 2 aeroplanes circle like buzzards in the distance. As they come closer, I see that they are not circling at all, but they are chasing one another. They are still too far away for us to see which one of them is ours. We make up our minds that it is the smaller one and cheer for him madly, and I'm wondering suddenly if the pilot from the yellow plane that landed in the water meadows that day might be up there in our plane. I can almost taste the humbugs he gave us as I watch them. I lose them in the sun, and then the smaller one spirals earthwards, and our cheering is instantly silenced. At rest camp, they give us our first letters. Charlie and I lie in our tent and read them over and over again till we know them almost by heart. We've both had letters from Mother and Molly, and Big Joe's put his mark at the bottom of each one, his smudged thumbprint in ink with Joe written large beside it in heavily indented pencil. That makes us smile. I can see him writing it, nose to the paper, tongue between his teeth. Mother writes that they're turning most of the big house into a hospital for officers, and the wolf woman rules the roofs up there more than ever. Molly says the wolf woman now wears a lady's wide-brimmed straw hat with a big white ostrich feather instead of her old black bonnet, and that she smiles all the time, like Lady Muck, Molly writes. Like Lady Muck. Molly writes too that she's missing me, and that she is well, except that she feels a little sick sometimes. She hopes the war will be over quickly, and then we can all be together again. I can't read the rest, or her name, because Joe's finger has blotted everything else out. They let us out of camp for an evening, and we go into the nearest village. Poperinghe. Pop, everyone seems to call it. Captain Wilkes tells us there is an estaminet there, That's a sort of pub, he says, where you can drink the best beer outside of England and eat the best egg and chips in the entire world. He's right. Pete and Nipper, little Les, Charlie and me stuff ourselves on egg and chips and beer. We're like camels filling up at an oasis that we've discovered by accident and we may never find again. There's a girl in the restaurant who smiles at me when she clears the plates away. She's the daughter of the owner, who is always very smartly dressed and very round and very merry, like a Father Christmas but without the beard. It's difficult to believe she's his daughter, for in every way she's the opposite. Wonderfully elf-like and wonderfully delicate. Nipper notices her smiling at me and makes something of it. She knows and she moves away, but I don't forget her smile, nor the eggs or the chips or the beer. Charlie and me drink to the Colonel and the Wolf Woman again and again, wishing them all the misfortune and misery and all the little monster children they so richly deserve, and then we stagger our way back to the camp. I'm properly drunk for the first time in my life, and I feel very proud of myself, until I lie down and my head swirls and threatens to drag me down into some black abyss where I fear to go. I struggle to think straight. I struggle to picture the girl in Pop. But the more I think of her, the more I see Molly. The big guns bring me to my senses. We crawl out of our tent into the night, and the sky is lit up all along the horizon. Whoever is underneath all that, friend or foe, is taking a terrible pounding. "That's Ypres," says the captain beside me in the darkness. "Poor beggars," says someone else. "Glad we're not in Wipers tonight." We go back into our tent, huddle under our blankets, and thank God that it's not us. But every one of us knows our time must come, and soon. The next evening, we go up into the line. There are no big guns tonight, but rifle fire and machine gun crackle and rattle ahead of us. And flares go up, intermittently lighting the darkness. We know we are close now, and it seems as if the road is taking us down into the earth itself, until it is a road no more, but it's rather a tunnel without a roof, a communications trench. We have to be silent now, not a whisper and not a word. If the German machine gunners or mortars spot us, and there are places that they can, then we're done for. So we stifle our curses as we slither and we slide into the mud, holding on to one another to stop ourselves falling. A line of soldiers passes us coming the other way, dark-eyed men, sullen and weary. There's no need for questions, and there's no need for answers. The haunted, hunted look in their eyes tells it all. We find our dugout at last, every one of us yearning only for sleep now. It has been a long, cold march, and a mug of hot chocolate and sweet tea to lie down. It's all I want. But with Charlie, I'm posted to sentry duty. For the first time I look out through the wire over no man's land and towards the enemy trenches, less than 200 yards from our front line, they tell us. But we can't see them, only the wire. The night is still now. A machine gun stutters, and instantly I duck down. I needn't have bothered, it was one of ours. I'm overwhelmed by fear, and I'm numbed by it. And for the moment that fear banishes the wretched discomfort of my wet feet and my frozen hands. I feel Charlie there beside me. "Fine night for poaching, Tomo," he whispers. I can see his smile in the dark, and my fear is gone almost at once. It's just as the captain said it would be. Quiet. Every day I wait for the Germans to shell us, and they don't. It seems they're too busy shelling Wipers further up the line to bother about us, and I can't say that I'm sorry. I even begin to hope that they might have run out of shells. Every time I look through the periscope, I expect to see the great hordes coming at us across no man's land, but no one comes. I am almost disappointed. We hear occasional sniper fire, so there is no smoking in the trenches at night. "Unless you want your head shot off," the captain says. Our artillery lobs a shell or two over into their trenches once in a while, and they do the same. Each one, theirs or ours, and ours sometimes drops short. Comes as a surprise and terrifies me at first. It terrifies all of us, but in time we become used to it and we pay less attention. Our trench and our dugouts have been left in a mess by the previous occupants, a company of Jocks from the Seaforths, so when we're not on stand to at dawn, brewing up or sleeping, we're set to clearing up their mess. Captain Wilkes, or Wilkie, as we call him now, is meticulous about tidiness and cleanliness. "Because of the rats," he says. We soon find out that he's right, again. I'm the first to find them. I am detailed to begin shoring up a dilapidated trench wall. I plunge my shovel in and open up an entire nest of them. They come pouring out, skittering away over my boots. I recoil in horror for a moment, and then I set about stamping them to death in the mud. I don't manage to kill a single one, and we see them everywhere after that. Fortunately, we have little Les, our own professional rat catcher, who is now called upon whenever a rat is spotted. Whatever the time, day or night, he doesn't mind. He jokes that it makes him feel at home. He knows the way of rats, and he kills them with a will each time, tossing their corpses up into no man's land with a flourish of triumph. After a while, the rats seem to know they have met their match in little Les, and they leave us be. But our other daily curse, lights, we have all to deal with ourselves. Each of us has to burn off his own with a lighted cigarette end. They inhabit us wherever they can, the folds of our skin or the creases of our clothes. We long for a bath to drown the lot of them, but above all, we long to be warm again and dry. Our greatest scourge is neither rats nor fleas, but the unending, drenching rain, which runs like a stream along the bottom of our trench, turning it into nothing but a mud-filled ditch. A stinking, gooey mud that seems to want to hold us and then suck us down and drown us. I've not had dry feet since I got here. I go to sleep wet, I wake up wet, and the cold soaks through my sodden clothes and into my aching bones. Only sleep brings any real relief, sleep and food. Goodness knows how we long for both. Wilkie moves among us at dawn on a fire step. A word here, a smile there, he keeps us going, keeps us up to the mark. If he has fear, he never shows it, and if that is courage, then we're beginning to catch it too. But we couldn't do what we do without Charlie either. It's Charlie who keeps us together. He breaks up our squabbles, which are many and frequent now that we are so closely confined together, and jollies each of us along when we get downhearted. He's becoming like a big brother to everyone. After Sergeant Hanley and the field punishment, and the way that Charlie managed to smile through it all, there isn't a man in the company who doesn't look up to him. Being his real brother, I could feel I live in his shadow, but I never have, and I do not now. Instead, I choose to live in his glow. We have a few more miserable days in the line, all of us longing for the comforts of rest camp, but when we get there they keep us endlessly busy. We clean our kit, we march up and down, turn out for inspections again and again, we do our gas mask drill again, and then there are always more ditches and drains to dig to take away the incessant rain. But we do have letters from home, from Molly and Mother, and they have knitted wool scarves and gloves and socks for us both. We have communal baths in great steaming vats in a barn down the road, and, best of all, eggs and chips and beer. The beautiful girl with the doe eyes is there, but she does not always notice me, and when she doesn't, I drink even more, just to drown my sorrows. The first snow of winter sees us back in the trenches. It freezes as it falls, hardening the mud, and that certainly is a blessing. Providing there is no wind, we are no colder than we were before, and we can at least keep our feet dry. The guns have stayed relatively silent in our sector, and we have had a few casualties so far. One wounded by a sniper, 2 in hospital with pneumonia, and 1 with chronic trench foot, which affects us all. From what we hear and read, we are in just about the luckiest sector we could be in. Word has come down from headquarters, Wilkie says, that we must send out patrols to find out what regiments have come into the line opposite us, and in what strength. Though why we have to do that we do not know. There are spotter planes doing that almost every day, so most nights now 4 or 5 of us are picked, and a patrol goes out into no man's land to find out what they can. More often than not, they find out absolutely nothing. No one likes going, of course, but nobody's been hurt so far. And you do get a double rum ration before you go, and everybody wants that. My turn soon comes up as it was bound to. I'm not particularly worried. Charlie's going with me, and Nipper, Martin, Little Les and Pete, the whole skittle team, Charlie calls us. Wilkie's heading the patrol, and we're glad of that. He tells us we have to achieve what the other patrols have not. We have to bring back 1 prisoner for questioning. They give us each a double rum ration, and I'm warmed instantly to the roots of my hair, to the toes of my feet. "Stay close, Tomo," Charlie whispers, and then we are through, climbing out over the top, crawling on our berries, crawling on your berries, crawling on our bellies through the wire. We snake our way forward. We slither into a shell hole and lie doggo there for a while in case we've been heard. We can hear Fritz talking now and laughing. There's the sound of a gramophone playing. I've heard all this before on Lookout, but it was very distant. We're close now, incredibly close, and I should be scared witless. Strangely, I find I'm not so much frightened as I am excited. Maybe it's the rum. I'm out poaching again. That's what it feels like. I'm tensed for danger. I'm ready for it, but I'm not frightened. It takes an eternity to cross no man's land. I begin to wonder if we'll ever find their trenches at all. Then we see their wire up ahead. We wriggle through a gap, and still undetected, we drop down into their trench. It looks deserted, but we know it can't be. We can still hear the voices and the music. I notice the trench is much deeper than ours, wider too, and it's altogether more solidly constructed. I grip my rifle tighter, and I follow Charlie along the trench, bent double like everyone else. We're trying not to, but we are making too much noise. I can't understand why no one has heard us. Where are their sentries? Up ahead, I can see Wilkie waving us on with his revolver. There is a flickering of night. No, there isn't. There is a flickering of light now coming from a dugout ahead, where the voices are and where the music is. From the sound of it, there could only be half a dozen men in there at least. We only need one prisoner. How are we going to manage half a dozen of them? At that moment, a light floods into the trench and the dugout curtains open. A soldier comes out shrugging on his coat. The curtains close behind him. He is alone. It's just what we're after. He doesn't seem to see us right away, but then he does. For a split second, the Hun does absolutely nothing, and neither do we. We just stand and look at one another. He could so easily have done what we should have done, just put up his hands and come with us. Instead, he lets out a shriek and turns, blundering through the curtain back into the dugout. I don't know who threw the grenade in after him, but there is a blast that throws me back against the trench wall. I sit there stunned. There is screaming and firing from inside the dugout, and then there is silence. The music has stopped. By the time I get in there, little Les is lying on his side, his eyes staring at me. He looks almost surprised. Several Germans are sprawled out across their dugout, all still, all dead, except one. He stands there, blood-spattered and shaking. I too am shaking. He has his hands in the air and he is whimpering. Wilkie throws a coat over him and Pete bundles him out of the dugout. Frantic now to get back, we scramble our way back up out of the trench, the Hun still whimpering. He is beside himself with terror. Pete is shouting at him to stop, but he's only making it worse. We follow the captain through the German wire and we run. For a while, I think we've got away with it, but then a flare goes up and we are caught suddenly in broad daylight. I hurl myself to the ground and I bury my face in the snow. Their flares last so much longer than ours. They shine so much brighter. I know we're falling. I press myself into the ground, my eyes firmly closed. I'm praying and thinking of Molly. If I'm going to die, then I want her to be my last thought. But she's not. Instead, I find myself saying sorry to Father for what I did, that I didn't mean to do it. A machine gun opens up behind us and then rifles burst to life. There is nowhere to hide, so we pretend to be dead. We wait till the light dies and the night is suddenly pitch black again. Wilkie gets us to our feet and we go on, running, stumbling, until more lights go up and the machine gunners start up again. We dive into another crater and we roll down, crashing through the ice into the watery bottom. Then the shelling starts. It seems as if we have woken up the entire German army. I cower in the stinking water at the bottom of the crater with the German and Charlie, the three of us clinging together, heads buried in one another as the shells fall all about us. Our own guns are answering back now, but it is little comfort to us at this moment. Charlie and I drag the Hun prisoner out of the water. Either he is talking to himself or he's saying a prayer. It's difficult to tell the difference. Then we see Wilkie lying higher up the slope, too close to the lip of the crater. When Charlie calls out to him, he doesn't reply. Charlie goes over to him and he turns him over. "It's my legs," I hear the captain whisper. "I can't seem to move my legs." He's too exposed up there, so Charlie drags him back down as gently as he can. We try to make him comfortable. The Hun keeps praying out louder. I'm quite sure he's praying now. "Du lieber Gott," I hear. They call God by the same name. Pete and Nipper are crawling over towards us from far beside the crater. We are together at least. The ground shudders, and with every impact we are bombarded by showers of mud and stone and snow. But the sound I hate and fear the most is not the sound of the explosion. By then it's done and over with, and you're either dead or you're not. No, it's the whistle and the whine and the shriek of the shells as they come over. It's the not knowing where they will land, or whether this one is meant for you. Then, as suddenly as the barrage begins, it stops. There is absolute silence. Darkness hides us again. Smoke drifts over us and down into our hole, filling our nostrils with the stench of cordite. We stifle our coughing. The Hun has stopped his praying and is lying curled up in his overcoat, his hands over his ears. He's rocking like a child, just like Big Joe. "I won't make it," Wilkie says to Charlie. "I'm leaving it to you to get them all back peaceful. And the prisoner. Go on now." "No, sir," Charlie replies. "If one goes, we all go. Isn't that right, lads?" That's how it happened. Under cover of an early morning mist, we made it back to our trenches. Charlie carrying Wilkie on his back the whole way until the stretcher bearers came for him in the trench. As they lifted him, Wilkie caught Charlie by the hand and held it. "Come and see me in hospital, Peaceful," he said. "That's an order." And Charlie promised that he would. We had a brew up with our prisoner in the dugout before they came for him. He smoked a cigarette Pete had given him. He'd stopped shaking now, but his eyes still held their fear. We had nothing to say to one another until the moment he got up to leave. "Danke," he said. "Danke schön." "Funny that," Nipper said when he'd gone. "Seeing him standing there. Take off our uniforms and you could hardly tell the difference between us, could you? Not a bad bloke. For a German, that is." That night I didn't think, as I should have done, of little Les lying out there in the German dugout with a hole in his head. I thought of the Hun prisoner we'd brought back. I didn't even know his name yet. After that night cowering in the shell hole with him, I felt I knew him better than I'd ever even known little Les. We are back at last at rest camp. Most of us, anyway. We soon find out which hospital Wilkie is in, and we go to see him as Charlie had promised. It's a big chateau of a place, with ambulances coming and going, and crisp-looking nurses bustling everywhere. "Who are you?" asks the orderly at the desk. "Peaceful," says Charlie, smiling. He loves playing this joke. Both of us are peaceful. The orderly does not look amused, but he seems to have been expecting us. "Which of you is Charlie Peaceful?" "I am," says Charlie. "Captain Wilkes said you would come." The orderly is reaching into the desk drawer. He takes out a watch. "He left this for you," he says, and Charlie takes the watch. "Where is he?" Charlie asks. "Can we see him?" "Back in Blighty by now. Left yesterday, in a bad way. Nothing more we could do from here, I'm afraid." As we walk down the steps of the hospital, Charlie is putting the watch on his wrist. "Does it work?" I ask. "Of course it does," he says. He shows it to me on his wrist. Wrist, not his risk. I don't know what a risk even is. On his wrist. "What do you think?" "Nice," I reply. "It's not just nice, Tomo," Charlie says. "It's wonderful. That's what it is. Ruddy wonderful. Tell you what, if anything happens to me, it's yours. All right?"